Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
And welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful day because, we have a great show planned for you with, of course, Ralph Bond. He joins us I believe it's every second Friday. So, man, this is the soonest conceivable day that he could possibly join us. And, we're going to have a lot of fun as he is our science and tech trends correspondent. So, we decided to tack on the science trends in there as well, because a lot of what Ralph keeps track of and what we, really ended up talking about month after month ended up being, kind of science related, but it's still very much in the realm of technology, and it's still very much a lot of fun. And hey, if you want to check out any of the stories that we do, we have a couple of we have the show notes, which are available at computeramerica.com, which will be all of the articles that we cover. And hey, very simply, you can follow along or, of course, check it out. If you're busy, if your hands are tied, don't worry, we got you covered. All right. So all of that being said, why don't we go ahead and just bring in our guest? And of course, Ralph, he's a longtime Computer America correspondent, worked for Intel, worked for Autodesk, and now works for, himself. So Ralph, how you doing? Welcome back onto Computer America. I'm sure that she is flattered that she gained a new employee, a new full-time, but yeah, perfect. And before it was only 23/7. So with that being said, before we get started, a couple of things just one thing I wanted to mention, and it's yeah, no, I know the header. Thank you in the chat room. But so a couple. Well, actually, one thing I wanted to mention, and I'm not sure, and I'm sorry to kind of blindside you with this, Ralph. But earlier today, woke up this morning and saw that. Are you familiar with Anthony Bourdain? Yep. Yeah.
Situations. The other woman, the fashion designer lady, I've forgotten her name, that killed herself recently. There had been some evidence and history, and spouse was aware of problems and so forth. But I haven't heard anybody that knew this man, Anthony, say, oh yeah, we knew he was depressed or knew that there was this kind of a problem. So this one seems to be a lightning bolt from out of the blue. My son and daughter and their respective spouses were huge fans of his show, loved it. I've seen a couple of episodes, thought it was fun and everything, but oh gosh, and suicide rates have gone up a lot in our country. It's just terrible. It's a really tragic story on so many levels.
It really seemed to compound itself where the the new research came out, and then Kate Spade was the designer we were talking about, and followed by Anthony Bourdain today. And, I just wanted to say that, we have touched on the subject before on the show, but mental health, very important. And, these recent events, two celebrities who, by all accounts, are very successful in what they do. But, that's just two high-profile people. Thousands. I think it was like 10,000 in 2017 alone, all across this country. So if anyone out there is feeling upset, if they are feeling like there's no way out, and something unfortunate like this crosses your mind, the best thing that we can all just kind of say is reach out. It doesn't matter if you are successful. It doesn't matter if you are mentally ill or not. It doesn't matter, any of these, classic symptoms that they claim to, kind of claim to contribute. It can happen to anyone, and any, everyone feels this urge. It doesn't mean you're weird, but reach out, try to talk to someone, and hey, you maybe you might just be able to save yourself, and that's a great thing.
Yeah, it is. And Ben, since we're a technology show, Computer America, of course, friends, if you have any feelings like this or know someone that needs help, you're a couple of taps on your phone or a couple of mouse clicks away from finding all the local resources, thanks to the miracle of the internet, right? And the web. You can get to these resources and get help. It's so easy now, thank goodness. And as you were alluding to, Ben, you can get to non-judgmental, helpful people. So I think it's a good idea to put that out whenever we can. Don't let this fester in your mind alone. You are not alone. And the web is here to help.
Very well said. And again, I apologize for kind of springing that on you, but
that's okay.
But I think you said that better than I could. So thank you, and everyone out there, thank you for, of course, tuning into Computer America. And again, hey, we hope that you continue to do so, for any reason. But all right, so now on a bit of a cheerier note, why don't we go ahead and get started with with our stories. So, Ralph, quick background, talk about how you go about collecting your stories. What's the criteria? What makes a story stand out to you?
Well, yeah. And again, go to the show website, folks, and get the show notes, as we call them. It's online. You can see all the notes, the links, the pictures, and so forth, all the stories. As far as the stories go, what interests me as a science and technology trends correspondent for Computer America is looking for stories that, well, of course, they appeal to me, but I'm always trying to think, and I'm not an engineer, I'm not a scientist by education and background. I spent my entire career as first as a tech writer in computers, and then in public relations and advertising and so forth for high-tech clients, culminating with a 10 and a half year stint with Autodesk as the end of my working career right now. Still doing some freelance work in the industry. But anyway, be that as it may, what I'm looking for are stories that I don't see or hear covered in the mainstream press that have science implications that are important. They might be in your paper, but I just look for things that are either quirky, unusual, or profound, I think, and meaningful in terms of what's going on and what might shed a light on the future that's just around the corner for us. For example, it's not in my list because it just came up yesterday, and in our local newspaper got some coverage, but I didn't hear it discussed much at all on the main television channels that I watch, and that's the rover Curiosity, right? The NASA rover Curiosity on the surface of Mars, finding evidence of methane, or if our British friends would say methane, methane and organic materials on Mars. Is this conclusive evidence of life? No, but it's very powerful couple of puzzle pieces that could really lend to the credence that there might have been life and or may still be life forms on the surface of Mars. And today I read in the paper that they are detecting fluctuational seasonal levels of methane, which would suggest biological reasons for increases and decreases rather seasonally. So, friends, that's probably one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most important science stories to come out really this year so far. And it's one to watch carefully.
Yeah. And I actually followed up a bit on that. We didn't talk about it on the show because it was a bit, well, NASA just did their press release or their press conference, and it was still kind of sciencey. But from my understanding, they found not exactly organic material, but organic compounds. So,
organic compounds. Yes.
Right. So that would be, the building blocks of life, not necessarily life itself, but it does lend credence to the fact that, hey, if you're going to have life, you're going to have these you're going to have these. The second thing was the methane, or the methane, as you called it. And I didn't know this, but the Curiosity rover, for being the size of an SUV, actually actually packing a kind of a tiny drill for scientific purposes, and it only has a drill for a couple of centimeters. there's a Mars rover coming from Europe. I forgot which country in particular, but they're sending one in 2021 that's going to have a 3-meter long drill as opposed to like a 4 to 5 centimeter long drill that Curiosity is using. So due to radiation and the breakdown of organic molecules, blah, 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 essentially they're promising signs, like you said, for life, but inconclusive. So exciting indeed. So
it is exciting.
Yeah. So with that, of course, with that being said, let's go ahead and start with story number 1, because this is also promising. Because hey, we might actually see some of these, as well.
Yeah. So this is a great example of the kind of stories I look for. I look for headlines, of course, that catch my attention, of course. And this one is from CNN Tech, a story by Matt McFarland. The headline is 5 Radical Technologies That Will Change How You Get to Work. So transportation related, right? And I'm only going to cover a couple of the 5 technologies.
Sure.
You can go use the link and see the others, because the others are so well known, the Elon Musk Hyperloop kind of things and that sort of stuff. Fine. And that's great. But we've talked about that a lot before. So I just picked out a couple of the 5. And the first one, if you have the show notes, you can see the picture here. And I'll jump right into the little story here. Companies such as Uber and Hyperloop One are pouring time and major resources into making innovative transportation concepts a reality. Here are other neat transportation developments underway. With flying cars, now this has been like the George Jetson fantasy for decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says, with flying cars, we may never have to sit in traffic again. Well, you and I have heard this before, but be that as it may, I'll go on with the story. It's still kind of fun. It says big companies such as Uber, Boeing, and Airbus. Now, the Boeing and Airbus, it really caught my attention. So big companies such as Uber, Boeing, and Airbus are actively developing the technology to get airborne. So are Silicon Valley startups such as Joby Aviation, Z-Aero, and Kitty Hawk. The latter 2 startups have been funded by Google co-founder Larry Page. Uber, which is working alongside NASA, isn't that interesting? Poor Uber's had such terrible publicity in the last year. It was an Uber driver, right, that shot a passenger. Oh my goodness, terrible stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought this was particularly interesting. Here we go. Uber, which is working alongside NASA, recently detailed an ambitious goal to introduce commercial flying taxis within the next 5 years. Wow. Rides will be booked within the Uber app. Although the cars seem like glorified helicopters, and actually if you look at the picture, it's kind of a hybrid like drone, the multi-propeller horizontally mounted kind of aircraft.
It's definitely a very unique design, obviously for, not like a traditional runway, but some kind of more urban setting. So vertical liftoff.
Yes,
kind of thing.
Exactly right. So it says again, although the cars seem like glorified helicopters, Uber believes it'll be safer and cheaper than what's already available. And then there's a quote here. If you had an app to request a 5-minute flight and skip all the tunnels to get out of New York City, that's a huge opportunity, said Sam Corus, an ARK investment analyst who has been studying flying cars. Now, I'm sure you were thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Yeah, it would be great to go up to the top of your office building, hail an Uber helicopter or whatever you want to call this thing, and fly out. But how are you going to deal with this in terms of the FAA and regulations of flight and air traffic and all these kinds of things, and especially in a highly secure and sensitive area like Manhattan and any of our cities you arguably could say are sensitive and so forth. So it's technically possible and doable, but I think the hangup is going to be the logistics.
Well, yeah, and it's that starting movement where this wasn't feasible before, but now we have to start thinking that what if we can carry people around in glorified drones? How do we design cities that do think not just in road layout but in 3 dimensions? So
yeah. So it raises a lot more possibly you could say skeptical questions than it does solutions, but it's fun. It's just fun to see people, and it's interesting to me that Uber and NASA working together. That's pretty interesting. I kind of wonder what other possibilities might be. Kind of forget the idea of commuters. and say, what else could this be for?
Right? and the first time that we heard about Uber saying that they wanted to fly people from building to building, that was let's see, the first place that they said they wanted to bring it to was Saudi Arabia. Some of the buildings there, as they chauffeured some of the some of the richest people in the world from building to building without having to associate themselves with us ground people. And it always amazes me that it's easier and more cost effective and more affordable at some level to design these things for the mega wealthy before it is for the 99% of us, and how to make it feasible to service, again, 99% of us. This is obviously going to be like, an executive helicopter type service, not really a, I need to go to McDonald's, let's rent a helicopter.
Yeah, I can see it from an urban environment, city center out to the airport or something like that. Right. This kind of thing where there might be a more, well, I don't know if logical is the right word, but more controlled flight paths, instead of someone saying, oh, take me over here to higgledy-piggledy, and where are you going to land these things? So you have to, there's so many considerations, but it's an intriguing idea. And actually the next part, the second of the 5 things that were in the article, I do think is really quite interesting. And its little subhead was taxi in the morning, pop-up store at night. And again, get the show notes, folks. Come out to the Computer America Show website. Get these show notes, because this will really make it come alive when you see the illustration. So part of the story here is your future rideshare car could be a chameleon. Toyota's e-Palette, so that's little lowercase e-Palette concept vehicle, can transform from a ride-sharing vehicle to a mobile store that sells merchandise, or into a package delivery truck. This means the ride that gave you a lift to work in the morning could also deliver your pizza for dinner. So the interior can transform, making it nearly impossible to detect it's the same vehicle. Meanwhile, and this is really curious, LCD screens on the car's exterior could display different brands and I'm adding this comment, messages and artwork and so forth and so on, right?
Right.
Toyota isn't alone in rethinking the layout of vehicles. Musk, of course, Elon Musk, previously described plans at Tesla to reimagine the bus by removing the center aisles and adding seats or other configurations, right? Other companies such as Via and Chariot are offering personalized routes determined by user data. So the idea of a vehicle that could perform, say, during business hours, one function, and then in the evening transform into something entirely different as a roving vehicle with a skin of LCD displays that could dynamically do advertisements or information or whatever. I thought that's pretty cool. And you can check this out. It's Toyota's e-Palette concept vehicle. So that's worth taking a look at.
And someone in the chat room just mentioned that, if they live out in California, California does that with LED-based plates. You can pay $600 for the plates and $7 a month to have a message or picture on it. So I guess it displays your license plate, and then it can also have some sort of doodad. But, hey, what do you expect from high-tech California? But no, it's a great idea, and there was another article, we're not going to get into it today, but you're talking about these different configurations, and I think we're going to start to see some they make logical sense, but there's going to be some pushback. Like there was an article about an airplane that and I don't know much about aerodynamics, about airplanes, but they want to remove all the windows from the airplane. And of course, the immediate thought is that, man, you're going to make everyone sick because they're not going to be able to look out. They're not going to be able to see. You're going to make them feel claustrophobic, and you're going to have a tube full of panicking people. They want to add LED windows that will simulate, with cameras, what you would see outside, but you would gain all the added efficiency of not having windows. So, between these vehicles you're talking about, the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to have these vehicles that don't have to cater to functionality of, a human driving or people, using them, and more, what's entertainment wise, what is best.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. It's and of course, and going back to this pallet idea from Toyota,
Right.
you could immediately make the argument, well, wait a minute, a bus-sized vehicle or a delivery truck-sized vehicle going around town with these LED dynamic displays could be a terrible distraction to drivers and could be deemed as contributing to unsafe driving situations. So there's always, there's counterpoints to it. But I think, again, I always think this, Ben, as you know, in our many conversations, it's maybe not what they say they think this is going to do, but what it could do in other applications and situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the air taxis could be something more viable for defined things like from a city center to an airport, very defined paths, right? This e-pallet concept could be something that might be great for on-site emergency vehicles or something that could be able to display information or help in emergency situations, blah, 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 blah. So there's, I always find myself saying when I see a technology story, it's, that's what they think, or that's why they're developing it. But my God, it could do this over here. It could do that over there. It might be used on this way, on this other kind of application front. So that's the thing I encourage everybody to think about when they hear these stories.
I mean, just the very basic one you put there, putting these displays on emergency vehicles, ambulances, things like that. You could give very useful, quick information, and, you could really drive the point home that, hey, you should get the heck out of the way because there's someone who's dying in here. So, so simple things like that. All right. So that's story number one. And again, everyone, if you want to check out the article, as Ralph mentioned, that's like 2 of them, and there are many more over at CNN. So you can find the link to that in the show notes.
Yep.
Story number 2, and
yes,
I don't get surprised a lot, but the idea of a helicopter, I'm down with it. The idea of a helicopter on Mars, why? So please, story number 2.
Yeah, of course, it's a great example. You asked what catches my attention. Well, gosh, when you see a headline that says Mars helicopter to fly on NASA's next Red Planet rover mission. It's from Astrobiology magazine. Now, it's a staff-written story, so I don't have a specific author. Mm-hmm. And there's a great photo here and a great video, too. You can go and see. It's all in the show notes. I'll give you the photo caption is NASA's Mars helicopter, a small, autonomous rotorcraft, will travel with the agency's Mars 2020 rover, currently scheduled to launch in July of 2020, to demonstrate the viability and potential of heavier-than-air vehicles on the red planet. And so just that little description from the caption to the photo gives you the gist of what we're talking about. But here we go. I'll give you the story. NASA is sending a helicopter to Mars. The Mars helicopter, a small autonomous rotorcraft, will travel with the agency's Mars 2020 rover mission, currently scheduled to launch in July 2020, to demonstrate the viability and potential of heavier-than-air vehicles on the red planet. Now, here comes a quote. NASA has a proud history of firsts, says NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. The idea of a helicopter flying the skies of another planet is thrilling. The Mars helicopter holds much promise for our future science, discovery, and exploration missions to Mars. And then a U.S. Representative John Culberson of Texas echoed Bridenstine's appreciation of the impact of America's firsts on the future of exploration and discovery. Here's a quote from him. It says, "It's fitting that the United States of America is the first nation in history to fly the first heavier-than-air craft on another world." That's kind of fun to think about. This exciting and visionary achievement will inspire young people all over the United States, and I would say around the world, to become scientists and engineers, paving the way for even greater discoveries in the future. Now, started in August of 2013 as a technology development project at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the Mars helicopter had to prove that big things could come in small packages. The result of the team's 4 years of design, testing, and redesign weighs in a little bit under 4 pounds or 1.8 kilograms. Its fuselage is about the size of a softball, and its twin counter-rotating blades will bite into the thin Martian atmosphere at almost 3,000 RPM, about 10 times the rate of a helicopter on Earth. Here comes another quote. Mm-hmm. Exploring the red planet with NASA's Mars helicopter exemplifies a successful marriage of science and technology innovation and is a unique opportunity to advance Mars exploration for the future, said Thomas Zurbuchen, I hope I'm saying that right, Associate Administrator for NASA's Science Mission Directorate at the agency headquarters in Washington. It continues on with this quote, after the Wright brothers proved 117 years ago that power, sustained, and controlled flight was possible here on Earth, another group of American pioneers may prove the same can be done on another world. That's pretty cool.
And Ralph, we might actually have to stop there because we're going to run into the break here in about 30 seconds. But I mean, for anyone out there watching the video portion, we just showed the YouTube video that you linked to.
Yeah.
And really, we're talking like a helicopter on Mars, but a helicopter might be a little generous for what we're looking at here. It's and I'm just surprised that I don't know much other than I think helicopters kind of use the force that they create in the air to lift themselves. I'm surprised that there's enough, atmosphere or air for them to lift themselves on Mars.
And that's a good point. And we'll get into that after the break because that's part of what the story talks about coming up.
Perfect. Yeah. So there you go. We're going to come right back to it. And for everyone out there, we're talking with of course, Ralph Bond. He is our science and tech trends correspondent. And we will, of course, be right back with more of these great stories. And, oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot to bring up the thing. So everyone, will be right back. More Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour, and thank you for joining us. In just a little bit, we will, of course, announce a winner. I think we're going to get through the story, and then we'll announce our Logitech contest winner after that. But Ralph, before the break, we were mentioning the story about Mars and how NASA wants to put kind of a helicopter, obviously it would be a type of drone, but a helicopter on the surface of Mars. I guess that'd get you around a little bit faster than those big clunky wheels.
Well, and it also gives you an opportunity to do things like aerial photography, close range, and so forth, and maneuver into terrain and so forth that maybe that the rovers themselves might have trouble dealing with, right? So, I mean, there's all kinds of pretty great possibilities with a flying vehicle, in this case a helicopter. But you asked just before the break about how do you get a helicopter to work on an atmosphere that's so profoundly thinner in density than our own? And so it's actually addressed in the article, so we'll pick up and continue on here. And I know this is a little bit of a long article, but some of them are so good, I think it's worth spending the time. And oh, by the way, everybody, I don't think we've ever gone through all of the 10 stories that I pull together each month, but don't let that worry you. Think of the show notes as a fun kind of homework assignment for you, a pleasurable homework assignment to go and kind of check it out and read things that we don't get to cover in the show. So with all that said, let's continue on with this Mars helicopter story. So it says the helicopter also contains built-in capabilities needed for operation at Mars, including solar cells to charge its lithium-ion batteries and a heating mechanism to keep it warm through the cold Martian nights. But before the helicopter can fly at Mars, it has to get there. It will do so attached to the belly pan of the Mars 2020 rover that they're going to, of course, launch and send to Mars. Here comes a quote. It says, the altitude record for a helicopter flying here on Earth is about 40,000 feet. The atmosphere of Mars is only 1% that of Earth. So when our helicopter is on the Martian surface, it's already at the Earth equivalent of 100,000 feet in the air, right? Said Mimi Ung, Mars helicopter project manager at JPL. She goes on to say, to make it fly at that low atmospheric density, we had to scrutinize everything, make it as light as possible while being as strong and as powerful as it can possibly be. So you can see
there
that
you go.
You're right on target with your comment about the air mass density on
the only
Mars.
thing I can imagine is like, so we're gonna fly a helicopter on Mars, and it's gonna be made completely out of carbon nanofiber because that's the only thing that works anywhere, everywhere, and it can do everything. So I assume, but go ahead.
Yeah. So it goes on to say, once the rover is on the planet's surface, a suitable location will be found to deploy the helicopter down from the vehicle and place it onto the ground. The rover will then be driven away from the helicopter to a safe distance from which it will relay commands. After its batteries are charged and a myriad of tests are performed, controllers, that means humans on Earth will command the Mars helicopter to take its first autonomous flight into history. Here comes another quote. We don't have a pilot, and Earth will be several light minutes away. So there is no way to joystick this mission in real time, said Mimi Ung, the official I quoted earlier. She goes on to say, instead, we have an autonomous capability that will be able to receive and interpret commands from the ground and then fly the mission on its own. So it's kind of like you just kickstart it with some commands from Earth, and then it does its thing.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, light minutes, that doesn't seem like a lot because they use the word minutes, but to put that into perspective, think about when you, browse your computer, the input latency for your mouse to your keyboard to your brain. Generally, you start to feel it around maybe 10 to 50 milliseconds for some people. You really start to, notice some kind of input lag. And then if it's, maybe like 100 milliseconds or something like that, you think, wow, this is almost unusable. And then, when you start to get to like 2 to 3 seconds, like imagine moving your mouse one and then, 2 seconds later, it finally does it. Now, imagine that 4 minutes. So that's why they say there's no possible way to do it in real time, is because they would move the joystick and then 4 minutes later, the drone would do what they want.
Yes, exactly. So it's just kind of like the ground control guys will just say, okay, start. And
right.
4 minutes later, it starts, but it's got to do its own thing. So the autonomous, which is an interesting technology challenge in its own right, when you consider you've got to have a super lightweight vehicle. How much can you have in terms of cameras? How much can you have? Blah, 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 blah. All these things you think about are kind of interesting. But to go on with the story, says the full 30-day flight test campaign will include up to 5 flights of incrementally farther flight distances, up to a few hundred meters, and longer durations as long as 90 seconds over a period. On its first flight, the helicopter will make a short vertical climb to 10 feet, about 3 meters, where it will hover for about 30 seconds. As a technology demonstration, the Mars helicopter is considered a high-risk, high reward project. If it does not work, the Mars 2020 mission will not be impacted. So this is the smart part of this thing, in my opinion. They're not putting all their expectation eggs into the one basket of this helicopter, right? It's icing on the cake. If it works, great. If it doesn't, the mission still goes. If it does work, helicopters may have a real future as low-flying scouts and aerial vehicles to access locations not reachable by ground travel, meaning the rover, of course. Mm-hmm. And here comes another quote. The ability to see clearly what lies beyond the next hill is crucial for future explorers, said Sir Buchan. I'm sorry, I'm butchering the poor man's name. We already have great views of Mars from the surface as well as from orbit. With the added dimension of a bird's eye view from a Mars copter, that's cute, we can only imagine what future missions will achieve. Mars 2020 will launch on a United Launch Alliance Atlas V rocket from Space Launch Complex 41 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida and is expected to reach Mars February of 2021. And that's the rover will conduct geological assessments of its landing site on Mars, determine the habitability.
There we go. Perfect. I like
the
it.
Environment of the environment, search for signs of ancient Martian life, and access natural resources and hazards, for future human explorers. Scientists will use the instruments on board the rover to identify and collect samples of rock and soil, encase them in sealed tubes, and this is interesting, and leave them on the planet's surface for potential return to Earth on a future Mars mission. So it's a little frustrating they can't send these tubes of goodies back to Earth right away. But all around, I just thought this was so clever. We've rover. And now we've got maybe helicopters.
Yeah, and what I was trying to outline to you earlier about the fact that Curiosity only has like a 4-centimeter drill, and I mentioned that the one in 2021 is going to have a multi-meter long drill. I believe it's this one that we're actually talking about. So it's the same one. As I said, it will look for signs of ancient Martian life. By drilling deeper down where radiation can't affect the microbes and things like that. If they are there, it's going to find us. So 2021 looking like, some of the closest we're going to get to is there life on Mars, at least, in the near future. So, and hey, best case scenario, next time we see Bigfoot on Mars, we can actually go investigate. We don't have to, kind of say, is that Bigfoot? Do you remember that?
Yeah,
that was a silly picture, but all right. So with that aside, before we get any further, Ralph, and I think we are. Let's see, was that story number 2? Story number 2. So 40 minutes. Story number 2. We're doing great. Before we go any further, I have to stop us because we're going way too fast, and and of course, I want to get to something. So let's put on a little bit of the appropriate music here, and. Gorgeous. All right. So that music means that we are going to announce our social media winner of the week. And this is a contest brought to you by Logitech where we're giving away an M720 Triathlon mouse. This week's winner is Miss Ashley Meyer. Love it. So, Ashley Meyer, thank you for tuning in to Computer America. Thank you for listening. If you are listening, hey, congratulations. And let's see, listen to us in, I've actually never heard of this one, Minooka, Illinois, USA. So, Minooka, Illinois, Ashley Meyer, thank you so much for signing up. And all she had to do was enter, she followed Computer America on Twitter. There's 13 different ways that you can enter the contest, whichever you feel comfortable with. And hey, maybe next week you too can be Ashley Meyer. So, until then, and of course, we're going to get in touch with her after the program just to get her prize out to her. And there you go. So next week could be you, and congratulations, Ashley. All right. So like I was saying, story number 2 conquered. We are just ripping through these. Let's go ahead because, story number 3 was one of the more interesting ones I did want to cover. And then maybe we'll get one more in there to, whichever one we feel is kind of, the most interesting. So let's go ahead and do story number 3 and the role of AI in medicine.
Yes, as you know, one of my pet interests, of course, given my wonderful health history myself, is technology and science and advancements in computer technology and web technology and science in general in the field of medicine, of course. And this story involves the United Kingdom, but its implications, I think, are interesting because we're so inundated with stories about artificial intelligence and then machine learning. Seem to be such hot button topics these days, and branching out into many fields, right?
You have no idea. If people out there listen to the Computer America show on the weekly, AI and and machine learning, as they more want to call it, really it's becoming a weekly topic where it used to be kind of like a science fiction, like maybe they're trying this in the lab. It's being used on everything nowadays. So just wanted to say that we are seeing it everywhere, and it's even affecting us on the show because, hey, I'm becoming very familiar with it. But please, medicine, go ahead.
Yes, I can't help but think about the old Terminator movies. Skynet is coming. Skynet is coming. It's going to become self-aware.
And you know what? Forget trying to meet time limits. I have to bring this one up.
Yes.
This one just happened. I believe it was yesterday or the day before. Have you heard about the AI Norman?
No, AI Norman.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's an artificial intelligence. But it was trained on Reddit, on a particular subreddit that we cannot mention on the program. But it is full of disturbing videos of unfortunate accidents most of the time, of people. Well, mortality. Let's just put it that way. Videos of mortality. And they trained this AI to, on all these videos on, neural networks and visual, to put captions onto videos and pictures. And they compared it to just an everyday AI that was trained on, pictures of birds and nature and buildings and people and, happy, normal stuff. And so they gave it the Rorschach test, the ink blots. Norman, the disturbed AI, and this was exactly what they wanted, where, the ink blot, the normal AI would call it a black and white picture of a bird flying. Norman said it was someone being sucked into an industrial extruder. And
Lord.
Yeah, and they gave it a dozen of these Rorschach tests, and some were like a butterfly, and it's this or that, and the AI was just morbid and psychotic, and it showed the ability for AI to be kind of corrupt based on the data it was given. So essentially, they created the first ever psycho AI. So
psychopath. Hey. Yeah. You know what? I think you triggered a memory. I think just yesterday, the day before, you see the news snippets when you're scanning news about something to do with creating a psychopath, a technology site. This must be the story you're talking about.
It was the same one. Yeah. They created the first ever psycho.
Funny.
Because, hey,
well, not funny. I don't know.
When you say, well, think about Skynet, and you think that won't happen. And then you see scientists create psychopathic AI. And you're like, why are you going down that road? But anyway, so AI can be used for good. It's very versatile, and it can be used for medicine for good. So
this is true. So back to the I guess you could say reality. So again, this is a story. This is from VentureBeat, a story by Kyle Wiggers. And the title of the story is AI will be used to reduce patient wait times at University College London hospitals. And you might think, well, patient wait times, so what? It's not very compelling. But it is when you have to do with trying to quickly determine prioritization of patients. And we'll find that out in the story. So here we go. So it says, University College London hospitals, one of the largest hospitals in London, announced today, so the story was posted May 21, that it will recruit artificial intelligence to carry out some tasks currently undertaken by doctors and nurses with the goal of improving emergency room admittance rates. That's why this is important, right? So to improve emergency room admittance rates, follow-up appointment attendance, and speed for routine tests. Machine learning algorithms supplied by the Alan Turing Institute will pore over admittance data to track how doctors and patients move through the hospital and identify potential bottlenecks. According to a March survey published in the UK's National Health Service, just 76.4% of patients requiring patients requiring urgent care at London hospitals were treated within 4 hours, the lowest proportion since 2010 when records began. So remember, the key here is patients requiring urgent care. So that's the issue. University College London Hospital's CEO Marvel Levy told The Guardian, which of course is their big newspaper in London, that a future version of the software might prioritize patients based on the severity of their symptom, such as fast tracking a person suffering from abdominal pain who is likely to have appendicitis, kidney disease, or another critical ailment. A second project, which was developed by the University College London Hospital's Clinical Research Association, Parashkev Najev, I hope I'm saying that right, will flag patients who are most likely to miss appointments, taking into account factors such as age, address, and weather conditions, and will automatically text reminders or even reschedule visits. That's kind of cool. In preliminary trials, the system was 85% accurate at predicting whether patients would show up for MRI scans and outpatient clinic appointments.
That's awesome.
And it is. And it actually, friends, it's not as mundane as it might seem to be on the surface, because managing scheduling and managing patient traffic and processing is a huge challenge and sucks the life out of efficiency in our medical professions. And so this is really potentially quite profound, the idea of applying AI and machine learning to this challenge. So go on with the story. Finally, UCLH will apply AI to CT scan analysis of 25,000 former smokers and to automatic cervical smear tests. Here's a quote from Mr. Levy. Machines will never replace doctors. So again, friends, that's not what they're talking about. But the use of data, expertise, and technology can radically change how we manage our services for the better. The hospital's effort comes months after London-based Google subsidiary DeepMind, in partnership with the UK's National Health Service and London's Mooresfield Eye Hospital, trained AI to diagnose eye diseases from 3D retinal scans. Wow. In the US, I'll stop for a second here.
Sure.
I think I see the role of AI and machine learning and technology like this. They mentioned that to diagnose eye diseases from 3D retinal scans. I'm a big proponent of where we are going, I think, certainly in the near future, is augmenting humans, not replacing, augmenting humans. So this means the doctor or the doctor and the nurse team can have an AI colleague, if you will, to render another opinion or to verify their conclusions, right? So it's the augmentation thing.
Yeah,
and interesting to me.
Yeah, and that's where everyone who deals with AI. I mean, we just had a company on the show. They are switching focus. So they used to, in the lead up to and during the horse races, the Triple Crown, things like that, they created an AI that would predict the winners of the horse races. And they would feed it everything from, the horse's stats, the horse's lineage, the weather, past wins that the horses have done. What was the weather there? Are they being fed right? News, like they would feed it all this data. And then, kind of what you're saying is that it wouldn't say with 100% certainty, this horse will win. Just like in, these AIs, they aren't going to say this person has cancer. They're going to give a percentage. So, they said that there's a 60% chance this horse will win. So that means out of the hundreds of simulations it's running in its own little AI head, 60% of the time, that horse wins. So, it's that same kind of AIs are not going to be perfect. They're not going to give an absolute. They're going to give a percentage where if an AI says that you have a 95% chance that you have glaucoma, then the doctor can take that and say, what do I think? And if they say it's 95%, let me explore that and let me see what the other 5% might be. It's not an absolute by any means, but it's a tool that they can kind of go to and say, what are the chances of?
Yeah, exactly right. And again, it's data and assessment that collaborates with the human staff, not replacing.
Right.
And I think that's your story about the horse racing thing is a good example of that too. So finish up the article here. It says, in the U.S., hospitals are using AI to aid in the treatment of certain diseases and life-threatening conditions. In January of 2017, so a little over a year ago, the Mayo Clinic Center for Individualized Medicine teamed up with startup Tempus to analyze the scans of 1,000 patients participating in immunotherapy studies for melanoma, lymphoma, and other forms of cancer. And in September of 2016, the Cleveland Clinic announced a collaboration with Microsoft to monitor intensive care unit patients who are at high risk for cardiac arrest. Industry analysts estimate that AI health market will reach $6.6 billion by 2021, up from $600 million in 2014. Stop. Think about that. AI health market goes from 6.6 billion will reach 6.6 billion in 2021, up from only 600 million in 2014.
Seems low.
Doing. Isn't that something?
Seems
in
low.
the US,
yeah.
In the US, AI is projected to create 150 billion in annual savings by 2026. So, fun story. I thought it was interesting, a great example of technology in medicine.
Right. And hey, that is, a lot of what technology is. That the last sentence really highlights it. Just like processors, just like anything else technology, sometimes it's not about creating something faster or newer. It's about using what technology you have more efficiently. Yeah. And that is key to a lot of, advancements. So, all right, there's that one. Again, links in the show notes if you want to check out the full article. But why don't we go ahead and check out some of these other articles here? Let's see. I think there was one.
Oh, there's a ton of good ones. Yeah, there's some other good articles and stuff. And Ben, we can direct people to go and get those show notes. If for a couple minutes that we have left, story number 9, it's kind of more on the light and possibly comical side, and maybe we could do story number 9 with
story number 9. It is. Go for it.
We have left. So this comes from Gizmodo, and again, talk about how do I pick stories? Well, sometimes it's the wacky stuff that gets me going. So here's the story from Gizmodo, a story by Andrew Lazweski, and the title is "Flying Hands-Free Umbrellas Just Might Be the Perfect Use for Drones." I have to think Andrew was tongue-in-cheek on this, but it is pretty cool. And of course, I think it's the Japanese, if I recall right, that are behind this. And there's a great picture. So here we go. It's make this as quick as I can. I'm impressed by the technology leaps and bounds that drones have made over the past few years, but until today, I haven't had much interest in owning one. I have no need for aerial photography, and I'm happy to leave racing through psychedelic neon courses to the pros. But a hands-free umbrella that autonomously follows me through the rain, this is a technology breakthrough I can use. A Japanese company, Ashi Power Services, believes there's a big market for self-propelled umbrellas, not only as a way to stay dry in a downpour while staying glued to your phone, but also as an easy way to beat the heat on a sunny day. The free parasol, as it's being called, will use a camera and AI to register, track, and autonomously follow a user's head. It's relying on technology that is already in use with autonomous drones like the Skydio R1. So the concept isn't totally out there, but there are some design hurdles to overcome before everyone is walking around with a floating dome over their heads. There's a video you can check us out. It's kind of fun. The current prototypes of the free parasol weigh about 11 pounds. That seems exceptionally heavy, and have a flight time of just 20 minutes. Your morning commute, I question that 11 pounds. That just can't be right. Your morning commute may be a lot longer than that, but the umbrella's designers are confident they can reduce its weight to a lighter 2 pounds and expand the flight time to at least 1 hour. That will certainly vary depending on weather, however, if the gadget has to battle the constant downforce of falling rain and the winds that usually accompany a storm. So I thought this was a quirky, goofy story that was sort of fun.
Yeah, and we are watching the video right now, and it's obviously at some kind of trade tech show. I'll be honest with you, looks like someone 3D printed a bracket for an umbrella mount. The umbrella is a typical drugstore kind of umbrella that you would possibly see, and they 3D printed a mount that they stuck it onto a drone, and they called it a new idea. And unfortunately, the gentleman is using a remote control to kind of lift it up and down. And I'm sure, Ralph, that you've seen it. I'm sure we've talked about it on the program that they have drones that you can release, and then they'll follow you. They'll identify you as a person, and they'll follow behind you 10, 15 feet. They're good for filming you when you're hiking, walking, weddings, things like that. And they're pretty good. They don't follow right above you because that's a hazard. I mean, this is obviously kind of a proof of concept, but I don't know. Ralph, how'd you feel if you walk into the door and you're not wet because you have an umbrella, but you're windswept because you're underneath an 11-pound drone and you're
yeah. I picked the story because I thought it frankly was kind of goofy, I guess. But some other stories to check out, friends, when you go and get the show notes. Story number 5, wireless system can power devices inside the body. New technology could enable remote control of drug delivery, sensing, and other medical applications. Great story. Don't miss that. Story number 5. That's a good one. And with the time that's barely remaining here.
Yeah. Oh, and actually the music is playing in the background, so we're actually just going to go ahead and wrap it up. But everyone, hey, if you want to check those out, you can, of course, head on over to Computer America right there in the cheat sheet. And I believe Ralph does a really good job over at his website to put everything together, including the video of today's show and the show notes. And your website over there is looking pretty darn good, Ralph.
Thanks.
So and if people want to find out more, where can they go?
They can just do a Google search, my name, Ralph Bond, and Wix, W-I-X, my website hosting service, and it'll bring it right up, and you can just click and go out to the Computer America tab, and you can see all the stories. But of course, you really should go to the Computer America website and start there always as your first recourse to get my shows and the other great shows that you do, Ben.
Works for us as well. So everyone, we're flat out of time. Once again, congratulations to our winner, Ashley, for entering the contest, and hey, we'll get your prize out to you soon. Everyone, we're out of time, and stay safe this weekend. Have fun. Bye-bye, everyone.